Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Anna Clements, and this is Audiobooks with Anna, where we explore the fascinating world of audiobooks with industry experts. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome to Narrators Assemble. Today we're chatting with Hannibal Hills, who very kindly is joining us on the sofa here. Welcome to the sofa, Hannibal Hills. Hannibal, tell us about you. This is all very new, and I'm really excited that you're here today because we're here to talk about your new software called Get Sleuthy. But I want to spend the first 20 minutes or so getting to know you. So can you tell us your story from before? Tell us how you got here, who you are, who Hannibal Hill is.
Gosh, okay. Can you hear me
Very
okay?
well, thank you. Yes.
Excellent. That's good. Who am I? Obviously, I'm another Brit, as you can probably tell, and this is my relatively natural accent, although I had the edges knocked off my real accent. If you spoke to my brother, you would hear what I would sound like if I had not gone to particular schools and then been trained as an actor. So my brother has what you would call an estuary accent because I was born in Kent, in a little place just outside Rochester. So if I talk like him, I'd talk like that. But I had the edges knocked off when I was back in the 80s when I trained in theatre in Southampton after living in Winchester for a long time. And I did some theatre, and then I directed for the stage for a couple of years. And I realised that I don't know, it was sort of grinding me down. It was a tough time, and so I wasn't going to make any money. I enjoyed it, but it was tough being a theatre actor. So everyone in the theatre was sort of mad, including me. So I went off and I had a strange life. I went to college and studied anthropology. I worked in banking for a number of years. I lived in various different places. I spent a bit of time in Switzerland, a bit of time on a Greek island, a couple of years living in Spain, 10 years living in Scotland. And I did all sorts of things. And then eventually I ended up in the US. About actually 20 years ago this year, I moved over here. And at that time, I was running a web design company, and which I did not enjoy. I didn't enjoy web design. I yearned for something a bit more performance based. So very quickly, I moved to being a wedding officiant. I got myself ordained. In fact, I'm ordained in several places, and
I'm
for
sorry,
years.
I have to ask several questions about that. That's too exciting not to interrupt you on. Tell us whereabouts in the US you're based, and tell us what that's like officiating weddings. That must be
Oh,
incredible.
good heavens, yeah. Well, I'm in North Carolina, which is where I've been since the beginning. I had a guy come to fix our internet yesterday, and he's like, "Why did you end up in North Carolina?" And I'm like, "Well, I just ended up here." And so I live just outside a little town called Sanford, and in the woods. I can look out the window on any side of the house and see trees, and that suits me. And where I used to live before, I used to live at the end of an airport runway, which for a narrator is about the worst thing imaginable. So I now live out in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina. I like it. The people are friendly. It's quiet. It suits me. After traveling around and doing all sorts of strange things, I like a fairly quiet life. And but the weddings, which I don't do anymore, but I did for years. I probably did about, I don't know, between 300 or 400 weddings. So in my career as a wedding minister, I suppose I would have called myself. And I specialized in, because I'm not particularly religious. I grew up in a non-religious household, and I don't affiliate to any particular religion. So I specialized in ceremonies for people who were not religious or wanted something a little bit more bizarre. I've done things like Mexican Day of the Dead themed weddings. I did a wedding where everybody came dressed as Ninja Turtles. I did did a lot of beach weddings because North Carolina has a lot of coastal area. And I would write these weddings and perform the ceremonies. And so I would sit down with the couple and say, "What do you want? What would you like to do?" And we came up with lots of fun ideas, and I would make their day very personalized. The one thing I didn't want for my couples was an out of the box kind of ceremony. So every ceremony was written based around their story.
That's
Um,
wonderful. Just, I must mention that in the chat, you're getting lots of people telling you they're also on the East Coast near you, and lots of other people saying that now they want to see photos. this is too exciting. We're hoping at
Ah,
some point there's going to be a blog post of of all your
I could
the
do that.
weddings you've officiated.
Me in a previous life doing this, and so oh yeah, it was fun, I mean, there were some downsides. You lost all your weekends, so my wife was sort of like, oh, we never get to do anything on the weekend, and she was right. Because most people get married on a Saturday and Sunday, and it was very hot work because often I was on a beach in a suit in August. I remember one time in July being on a beach and it was like 110 degrees and I'm wearing a suit and boiling, even though I like the heat. So I will absolutely get some photos out. I mean, I've done other things too. I was the lead singer in a band for 4 years. I sort of forget the things that I've done over the years because I just tend to, I like a new challenge. And so I got to the end of being a wedding officiant, I think after doing it for like sort of 6, 7 years. And I've written 2 books on it as well, one of which is a very popular book. It's called the Complete Celebrant Handbook. And it's a big thing. Don't drop it on your foot. It's like 168,000 words. And it talks about all the little things that I sort of gathered, information I gathered about particular rituals you could add to your wedding and how to put together customized vows and all those things. It talks about that. But it's not an audiobook because it doesn't lend itself well to the audiobook format.
I'm currently racing off to get links for people, so I'm just going to put some links in the chat for that book before I
Oh, thank you.
end
Well,
up putting
don't
up.
don't feel you have to buy my great tome on being a wedding officiant unless you're thinking about taking it up. But yeah, so at the end of that, I about 2016, my life had sort of changed. I'd my first marriage had ended, and I was February is a very quiet time for weddings, and I was sitting in my flat, and I thought, one person at a wedding had said to me, "Have you heard of Audible, audiobooks? You got a great voice doing this. The usual thing that narrators hear right at the beginning." And I thought I should book just an hour in a recording studio and just go in and just read whatever nonsense into a microphone and see if I like doing it. And so I phoned up this local studio because studio time is a lot cheaper than we might think. I think it cost me like $30 for this hour, and I went in and I read wedding readings into a microphone for about maybe 45 minutes, which is, if you've ever done that, it's a bit like the equivalent of just eating sugar for 45 minutes. At the end of that, I was just so sweetened out by all the sort of love and romance in there. I just wanted to go away and read some Stephen King or something. And the strangest thing I found about that first session is no audience. At a wedding, of course, you've got a very captive audience, and they respond to your jokes and they respond to particular cues in the reading. So, and the same is true of theatre. And I've done a slight bit of video and telly before, way back, but mostly theatre acting and mostly performance. So this time there was no audience. You're the audience. So I think that was the biggest surprise. But I found I liked it. So I went on ACX and I did 3 auditions. I just picked 3 books at random. I had no idea which books to pick. So I picked an urban fantasy, a non-fiction, and something. Oh God, it's a long time ago. Oh, comedy book, and I got all 3 books. So I thought, oh, so I paid for the studio time and I did these 3 books. And I
I'm
thought,
sorry, I must just say out loud,
mm,
not everyone is as lucky as you, and
no,
not that's not everyone's experience. So don't come shouting at us afterwards from the audience to say, "How
no,
come?"
I want to do that. Well, I will say this: ACX was a very different animal back at the beginning of 2017. There was a lot more gold in Damdare Hills, if you will, if you don't mind the pun. And also the books that I chose. One of them's done okay, but the other 2 were absolute. I mean, stinkers. I've probably made like $20 off those books. I mean, they were not. I had no idea how to spot a seller. This is nicely segueing into Sleuthy, of course. And so I just picked books at random, and I got better at picking the books as I went on. But there, I was, I had no idea. But so yes, I mean, if you go on ACX and you literally sort of just close your eyes and stick a pin in ACX, then you might do quite well. Although I don't audition on ACX anymore for various reasons. So I've been doing this now, I think 7 years. And I'm on book 160 of my own narration, but obviously I've done a few. I also produce, so I do books with other narrators. I audition and hire other narrators and produce those books, either on behalf of my own company, because now I have Royal Wave Media, which is my publishing company, or on behalf of people that hire me to be their producer. I'm doing one at the moment, which is a historical, sort of vaguely romantic, but mostly historical book. Um,
Sorry, do speak to us a minute about your own company. What's it called? What do you do? How did that begin? Because
oh,
not every narrator becomes a production house.
no, but I found early on, and this is true of why I had the web design company and why I was a wedding celebrant, in that I I don't work well in what you might call a corporate atmosphere. I don't work well in a for various reasons of my personality, etc. I don't work well with a boss and a desk and a cubicle and being told what to do. So I like to sort of as Sean says, beat your own drum kind of thing. And I'm very much about that. And so I decided early on that I really wanted to be doing my own projects. I wanted, if possible, to find books and somehow sort of produce those things rather than sort of being much as I love working with everybody I've worked with. Well, obviously we all have that one person I won't name that, but there are most companies are wonderful to work for, and it's a nice system. If you can get the work but I wanted to do more, and also I wanted to put out ebooks and try my hand at paperbacks and just really get to understand the audiobook publishing world. So I started a publishing company called Royal Wave Media, and now that's what I do most of my work under. Most of my work is done under Royal Wave. I still occasionally work for other people if approached, and the job's right, or they that kind of thing. But most of my stuff is done with Royal Wave, either books that I collaborate with authors or minor publishers, or I go out and I get the license for the book from larger publishers and agents, and then I bring that back and then produce the book and then pay royalties. And I really quite like it. I enjoy it, and I made a lot of well, yeah, at the beginning, a lot of sort of I didn't know what I was doing, and I think, but that's half the fun. Is a challenge, is in going in and sort of exploring new realms, so to speak.
Melissa has written in the chat, Hannibal sends the nicest rejection letters for Royal Wave Media, and then a heart and a smiley face. So you've you're obviously doing something right there.
Oh well, yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, you see, this is one part of the industry that I had a sort of slight problem with, was that we audition and we put our auditions out there, and when we get coached, we're told that, and I coach and I tell my students, audition, forget about it, don't fall in love with the book, don't worry about hearing, because a lot of the time you don't hear because they don't have time to send you a note, and so you just throw these things out in the ether. You put, even if it only takes you half an hour to put together that audition, that's still half an hour of your life, and that's a half an hour you've worked really hard on and care about. And I figured, you deserve at least get stuffed email. So I whenever I do a project, Royal Wave, and I run an audition. Don't for every project, but when I run an audition, I make sure to send everybody who's taken the time to send in their audition and their note and their resume. Thank you. I'm terribly sorry you didn't get the project, but thank you very much. You're still on my radar. I think that's just courtesy. But unfortunately, in our industry, it's not a common practice and not a regular practice, but it should be.
You're getting lots of people saying how very much they appreciate it and how grateful they are. And I think sometimes, having heard authors talk about the number of 297 auditions on ACX, I think sometimes people are just a little overwhelmed by the job in and of itself. But as you say, the fact that you take the time, I think, makes people very grateful and make them
Well,
want to audition for you again. So
thank you. I
that's
mean, the thing is, the narrators they've taken the time to study the material, give the best performance they can, edit that into an MP3, take the time to send it across, probably with a very well crafted, friendly email, and then they've sat there hopefully waiting. The least you can do is send a note, I think, and you just put together a spreadsheet of everybody, and then you go down the spreadsheet and make sure that everybody gets a mail, and if you can give some feedback, but I don't, obviously nobody has the time to sort of give feedback, but it makes people feel that you care and that they're out there, and you understand that they're not just workers in the mill. This is we're creatives and people, and we have feelings, and that's a big thing for me with Royal Wave is I didn't want to be what you might term an audiobook mill. And I think we know some companies that are a bit like that, where they license lots of books, they get the narrators in, they get the book done, they get the book published, and then it's rinse and repeat. And sometimes it feels that we're just part of a big wheel that's turning when we do that. And I didn't want Royal Wave to be like that. I wanted every production that we do to be crafted, to have every almost like artisanal narration. If you so, but just
Yeah.
that craft, and make it special. And of course, in this day and age, that is what defines us differently to AI. What we are is the more craft, the more love, the more care, the more art we put into our productions, the more we leave AI in the dust. And so that's I'm big on that. It's
I,
very important.
yeah, no, that's wonderful to hear. Two questions for you. Has it been smooth sailing? Was it when you began the company? Has did it turn out like you thought it might?
Hell no. I mean, I made a lot of stuff up as I went along. There were a couple of books, and I'm just about to put together an article of sort of books that I think narrators should read that aren't the obvious books. Um, but I can't, off the top of my head, I haven't got that in my head right now, so I'm concentrating on this call. But I will definitely do that. I'll put together a list, and some of those books help me immeasurably doing this. It's not business books per se, but yeah, I mean, oh, absolutely. I made terrible mistakes when I started like going after my own projects, particularly audiobook prospecting, which of course leads us again. Everything comes back to Sleuthy. I chose some real losers, and or went about the approach the wrong way, or just didn't know what I was doing. Made it up as I went along, and sometimes it worked, and sometimes it really didn't work. Fortunately, I didn't, cause any terrible fires by doing this. I didn't hurt anybody or lose anyone, apart from myself, any money. And but I learned a lot over the years of doing this, and I guess I've been sort of working in this way more and more for about at least 4.5 years now, and now it's the majority, very much the majority of what I do. No, it wasn't smooth sailing, and nothing ever is. I mean, narration isn't. When I teach narration and talk about narration to people at parties who say, "Oh, I could do that, I can read to my kids," I say, "Well, it's like climbing a mountain." And for me, I've just found my own strange path up the West Face. Most people go up the particular path that's laid out, and the one we all know, where you do X number of books, and then you publish it, and then you get your first book at Tantor, and you join SAG-AFTRA, and then eventually every book you do is offered to you at PFH at a great rate. And I my route was very much, well, I'm going to go off quietly and sort of do my own thing, and find books that hadn't been made into audiobooks, and see about making them into audiobooks. And some of the ones I've made into audiobooks were terrible sellers, and not great. But more and more, I learned what worked and what didn't. So I would say now I feel very confident about what I'm doing, and now the biggest challenge I have is, in order to upscale from where I am. For instance, I've just hired a bookkeeper because I was doing that stuff myself. Having worked in banking before, I knew a little bit about it, but I realised that we got to the point where I needed someone to take that over. I've also got someone doing some like admin work for me, 20 hours a month. So I'm at that point where I'm starting to branch out from just one man and his desk, and that's a little bit terrifying, but also fun. But I'm confident about the process. I'm confident about what I'm doing. I don't come to any aspect of audiobook production going, well, I don't know. I'll just try this and hope it works. And so no, it wasn't smooth sailing. It's rough. But then I think David Bowie said that with art, if it's not scaring you just a bit, then you're not doing it right. And I think that's true of audiobook work too.
Well, that's lovely. There is that. Yes, if your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough.
Right.
I love that idea. Love that idea. And can I also, sorry, I remembered the other question. On the website, which is at the top of the page for anybody who wants to pull down to refresh and take a look at the website, there's a lot of horror up there, Hannibal.
Ah, yeah, horror. Well, you know, I used to read a lot of horror when I was younger, and when I started off, I did a lot of horror, and I've been very lucky to do some really fun horror books. It's a genre I like, and it's a genre that seems, you know, to suit my particular type of voice. So I mean, when we all start off, I think we think, well, I can do any genre. I can do, you know, I'll do every genre. No genre I can. A bit like when you start off as an actor, you think, well, I can play everything. I can play Hamlet. I can play Fagin. I can play everything. You know, and you quickly find that your talents, in this case your voice, are better suited to particular types and particular genres, and I know that my voice is much more suited to something like horror than, for instance, you know, YA romance. I would sound weird, I think, doing a couple in their teens having their first love, you know, strange coming from my voice. So I think find your niche, or as they say over here, niche, and embrace it. Don't worry about being typecast, because that way, honestly, gold lies. You know, if you find what suits you, then you know you're mining a vein that's strong. So yeah, horror is for me. I enjoy it. Sometimes I need a break from it. If I've done a lot of horror and it's particularly gory, I've done a lot of work with an author called Lee Mountford. Lee and I have done 17 books together over the last 7 years, and we've had a lot of success. His stuff is very extreme in many cases, and so sometimes after that I need to go walk around the park. Or we did one book, our favorite of our books that we've done together, a book called Tormented, which was set in a lunatic asylum. And our favorite review of that book was somebody who got three-quarters of the way through the book and then left us a review that said, "There's too much demonic sodomy in this book for my liking." we still laugh about that, you know, that we didn't quite get that right. You know, it's a difficult thing to thread, you know, because you don't want too little demonic sodomy, but you don't want to go overboard with it. And I know exactly which chapter he's talking about in that book. I think it's chapter 27 in Tormented. Is That's where most of the demonic sodomy is, anyway. So if you don't like demonic sodomy, don't read Tormented. But yeah, I like horror. I like humor. I like doing, you know, humor and horror are great close cousins. You know, you need a certain amount of sort of timing and things for both. And I like doing humor audiobooks, but unfortunately, humor is a genre that is a bit of a low seller. I don't know if anyone's seen my recent study. I did a sort of study to answer the question, which genres sell best and which sell less well. And you can on Get Sleuthy and Get Sleuthy's blog, you can find this article. And it was interesting to me what came out, but unsurprising to me that humor doesn't really sell. People don't seem to like funny. They like thrillers. They love fantasy. The biggest surprise in that was that fantasy sells more than romance.
That
So,
is surprising. And
go.
back up for us, Hannibal, because you glossed over. Where can people go to sign up to find the blog?
Oh, getsleuthy.com. My
Well,
little, so
let's sorry,
that's
let's pause there for a second then, and let me do a refresh of the room, because we've had lots of people join us since we started. So let me just
hello.
let them know what's going on here. Today we're chatting with Hannibal Hills, who's very kindly come along to talk to us about his journey, which is what we've been doing so far. And this half of the room is to talk to us about Get Sleuthy, which is the new piece of software that I say new, but it's been out for a couple of months now, which we're super excited to talk about. So if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants to come up and chat, and thank you for everybody who's already putting lovely things in the chat, which I'm happy to read and continue to share. This is your opportunity to do so. And please don't leave it till 5 minutes before the end, like you always do, to come up and chat. Pop up anytime, interrupt away. Hannibal hopefully is having a lovely time here. So, Hannibal, back to you. What's Get Sleuthy?
I am having a lovely time. Thank you. I was looking through the sea of faces and seeing some wonderful friends there. Hello, you know who you are. So hello and thanks for coming.
They can
Um,
hear you, so it's all
so
good.
yeah,
I
good.
find myself waving at my phone sometimes. I go, oh no, it's not video.
I just waved. I just waved at all the
It's
pictures.
bizarre, isn't
So
it?
if they've ever had a Zoom call with me or something, then they know that I always wave at the end anyway. I think it's a British thing. It's like we all say, "Oh, bye, 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 bye." So, what is Sleuthy? Sleuthy is a tool that helps narrators find viable or unproduced books, so books that do not have an audio version. I love audiobook prospecting, but what I found very quickly is that the actual process of finding books on Amazon or elsewhere is incredibly tedious. And you can trawl through, and you have to trawl through a lot. It's not designed for people to find books that don't have an audio version and suit certain criteria. So about a year ago, I was sitting around and I thought, there has to be a way to automate this. It's just data. I need to just find where to get it, and so I over the course of the next few months, I experimented and I built Sleuthy. My wife came up with the name, because it sleuths out books. And what it does is it gathers unproduced books, so books that don't have an audio version, and it produces curated lists by genre of these books. And by I say curated, I weed out what I call non-viable books or misfits, things like, you know, puzzle books or dictionaries or that kind of thing. It weeds those out. It also weeds out books that have a sales rank less than, or rather in terms of the figure more than, because sales rank's confusing, a million. So if your sales rank is a million or plus, which is a lower ranking. So sales rank on Amazon, for instance, is like the pop charts. That the smaller the number, the better you're doing. So if you've got a sales rank in the thousands, you're selling lots. But if you've got a sales rank up in the millions, you're not selling anything at all. And so it weeds out all the very low sellers. And then it curates it into lists, and you can sort the lists by, first of all, genre. You can, if you want to dig down into a subgenre. So, for instance, say you wanted to do cozy thrillers or mysteries. Well, there's a bar. You type cozy in, and it will filter that out. And then you can sort by the average reviews. So if you just want ones that are rated 4 and above, which I recommend, or you can sort by the number of reviews, because that's a good indicator as well. And you can tell it what the worst sales rank you want is, and so then it produces a list of hopefully as up to date as possible, of books that haven't been produced that meet your criteria, and then you can put those into your own little. You can choose to add them to your own little list. And where possible, we're adding the contact details for these books as well. So you've got a starting point, know where to go to the author's website or the author's Facebook page or the author's email address. So you've got a starting point for your contact, which is what I've been told many times is a stumbling block. So we're trying to add those to at least the best sellers.
What I'm really enjoying is that you seem to be, when it started, there was an ongoing kind of feeling of, tell us how this works, tell us what you're enjoying, tell us what you do and don't want from it, and we'll fix it as we go along. Has that been useful to you?
Yes, yeah, I love feedback, and I love being told when things, oh, this isn't working quite right, and because that's how we improve it. And I like puzzles, and so for me, improving it is, I'm currently working on version 2.10. It's 2.9 at the moment, but 2.10 is going to add historical rankings. It's quietly been collecting historical rankings, and so I'm going to add a box on each book's page that shows you, like, going back, what records we've got in terms of the rank. I'd love to know, because I know it works for me. And this is the thing. When I built the tool, I built it mostly to save myself time, first of all, but also to prove it could be done, which was a lot trickier than than it seemed. But I was determined to make it work. And so this is actually the third iteration of my initial design. I started from scratch twice. And I love feedback. I would love to know what people like, or if people hate something, if people want something to be more user friendly. I'm happy to do that. I'm not going to be one of those people that goes, well, that's just how it is. Like it or not.
I must just interrupt you because we were joined by Jonathan Welsh, who's very kindly come up to the
Hey,
sofa to chat with us. Jonathan, thoughts, comments, questions? Hello.
hello. There.
Hi.
Hello, Hannibal. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Listen, I just wanted to say that I told you so, didn't I? I
Ah, you
told you
did.
about Sleuthy. It's such a wonderful tool. It really is good. Now, I went on it when it was in its beta mode.
Oh yeah,
So,
back in its early little iteration.
yes, yeah. So you asked me to go on it, and I went on it, and I chose a book, and I more or less got it immediately, and it worked for me. So there you are. The chap was in Australia, and it was just fantastic. We did a Zoom call, and it's just amazing that this thing works.
I
So
know, right?
yeah, it's really, really good. So yeah,
Ah,
I just wanted to say congratulations, Hannibal. I knew it
thank you.
was going to work for you. I knew it.
That's wonderfully sweet. Well, when I turned it on, which was probably at the end of May last year, when I actually sort of flicked the switch and said, "All right, let's see what this does," and it started just quietly going away, and it works round the clock. It just does its own thing, and there's a couple of things I have to do every month, but I was amazed at what it started throwing out. And I was like, oh, this is really working well. And I had a moment where I was like, I really shouldn't share this because this is a really, really great tool. This is an advantage. But I realized that, audiobook prospecting is so much fun and a lot of people really want to try it. And I think people should try it. I think it's a great thing. And this was going to be helpful. And it was more important to me to really sort of share this and hopefully put another tool out there that can be a little bit useful for audiobook narrators who want to do prospecting. That this saves them the grind of hours and hours trying to find books. Hopefully, they can do it just a bit quicker. So I had to share it because I think hopefully it will be useful. And Jonathan was my first sort of case where it really was useful, and since then, I've found books myself, and I know of other people who and it's just great to see it actually doing what I hoped back in my mind about a year ago it might.
Yeah, jolly well done. When you get a book that you want to narrate
Mm.
and you have difficulty finding the authors, because their emails are probably sometimes hidden
Oh
or,
yeah. There's very little way to actually automate that to a great degree, although some of it I can. So on the each listing, it has sort of Sleuthy's notes, and in Sleuthy's notes, Sleuthy puts what it finds, or I help it find, and that is sort of the next breadcrumb on the trail. So it would be the author's website, or the author's Facebook, or the author's email, where I can get that. I've just actually done another article on the blog, which is how to find author contacts. So it just is a
Ah,
guide to how to find those. So I recommend anyone who's interested in doing this read that, and it lays out the methods I use to find the contacts and why certain methods actually I think are underrated. A lot of people think that website contact forms. Oh no, I don't want to do a contact form. Well, actually, a contact form has loads of advantages. I have discovered over the years. I've got several books through approaching authors through their website contact forms. You immediately bypass their spam filter. They know you're legitimate and not a bot. It would be unusual for certain companies to approach them through their forms. There's advantages to going to an author through their website form. It's don't underrate it. So yeah, that
okay.
article's on getsleuthy.com's blog. And it sort of tells you how to find these things if they're out there. Now, if they're not out there, if it is becomes, and it is for some books, impossible to find the author contacts using all the
Hmm.
methods and all the tricks, you just can't find. They don't want to be contacted. And that in itself is also useful information. If an author doesn't have a website, doesn't have a Facebook page, doesn't have a reader group, doesn't have, any kind of contact details available, it shows that they're not the kind of business focused author that you perhaps might want to be dealing with.
Hmm.
That they're not putting themselves out there front and center. They're like, well, my marketing is I just publish it and hope people will buy it. And you really shouldn't be working with that type of author
Yeah.
unless they're paying you lots of money to. So that in itself, even if you can't find the contact, is useful information about that author.
May I interrupt your conversation? Jonathan, do
Please.
stay up here with us. Hannibal,
Bye, bye.
can I ask you
Bye.
to back up and talk to us about how Sleuthy works? So you brushed over and then we moved right into how you find the authors. But this concept of talk to us about the practicalities. I go to the website and what happens?
Right. So you go to the website and sign up. Anyone can get a week's free trial to try it free for a week. So because if you don't like it, then that's fine. It's not for everybody. And so you go, and there's a button that says search. I've also got a section on there that tells you kind of like a read me first, where it says this is what the buttons mean, this is what they do. So you go there, and it's a list. It's a form at the top of the page that asks you first of all which genre you want to search in, and then it has the other sort of filters. For instance, Sleuthy allows you to filter out major publishers. So if you don't want books by Simon and Schuster and Penguin Random House and people like that, you can click and it will filter those out. You can also filter out books that are on the free rankings list on Amazon rather than the paid ranking list. But you can filter that out, or you can filter out books that are academic books that are like Oxford University Press. So you can filter out those, and you can say I want books that have this rating and at least this sales rank and this many reviews. You don't have to. You can just leave it open, and then you press search, and it filters for that genre. So if you've gone into romance, it will filter those, and if you've put, for instance, paranormal in the in the search box, like you've typed that as a filter word, it will try and find all the books that suit paranormal within the romance genre. So it will filter down for you, and then you've got a list, 25 to a page, the thumbnails, the title, the author, and the ranks and ratings, and it's there. It's a list, and so you go down the list, and anything that sort of catches your eye, you can then. There's two buttons. One is to view the book details, which will take you into the full details for that book. The other one is to go visit that book on Amazon, because I figure a lot of people might want to do that. But if you go into the book details, you can also add it to your own personal list. You can save books, as it were. And then there's another button from the main dashboard that takes you into just your list of books. And when a book is on your list, you can add your own notes to it. You just can type in a note like, reached out to the author, and it will save the time and date. No, only you can see those notes. They're not public notes like the notes that's on there for Sleuthy, where we talked about the author's contact details, that kind of thing. And if you take a book off your list and then put it back off on your list, the notes are saved. So you go, oh no, I've lost my notes. No, it doesn't delete the note. And so that's how it works. And then you've got your list of books you found, and you go off and you do the next stage of prospecting, which is the reach out stage, which is actually something that I coach on, how to reach out to authors properly, because a lot of people, I think, don't know how to do that. I think that's frustrating. But what I've found through trial and error and lots of mistakes over the years is how I think it works best. And also, I spend a lot of time talking to authors myself, and so I spend a lot of time kind of visiting that camp and finding out what they do and don't like. Authors are a strange breed in some ways, and so they need to be approached right, and it's very different to how you would approach a publisher. Very different. So that's how Sleuthy works. It gives you a curated list based on what you put in, and then you can save the books or visit the books or look at the books, and it's all there, and it updates as quickly as it can. It's adding books every day, and it also has a function where it's going back through the books it has live and regularly checking them to make sure they haven't now got an audiobook added.
Question that's in the chat, and I'm not sure I understand the question. Rebecca says, is there a way to search for a particular offer to see if they pass through the filters that have been set up?
An
Rebecca, I don't know if
offer.
you're available to put your hand up and come and talk to us, because I'm not sure what you mean. So I think it might be easier if you, for one
Yeah.
minute. She says she'll
Oh,
come up in 1 minute.
okay.
She's
An
obviously.
offer. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what that is, and I'm sure, hopefully, I can answer it. I mean,
Lovely.
you can. There's a what you call an open text field. So in that you can search by you just put in a word. You could put in a word like, I don't know, trousers or something, and it will go away and find any books that hopefully are relevant to whatever word you put in there. So some books, for instance, in the title of the book, the description of the book, and any other meta information for the book, it's not actually helpful. Authors aren't all brilliant at doing this, and so it's difficult with some books, even just looking at them and reading all the material, to figure out what on earth they're about. But if an author knows their business, then if they've written a cozy mystery, then there's cozy somewhere in the title of their book or the description of their book or the meta keywords or the categories. And so the system can find that and will return that as one of your results.
Wonderful. Rebecca has joined us. Rebecca, are you available to ask your question?
Depends. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, very well.
Yes. Oh,
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So, I've been I've been compiling a spreadsheet of authors, and generally, like, these are people I've either met at conferences or seen do panels and things, or seen like I have a different way to search for authors than going through Amazon. And like the hardest part for me is I have these authors, but like I don't know if they pass all these different criteria with, sales rank, and are they contactable and all these things. So I was wondering if there's a way to maybe put in the author's name in the search bar and see if they, if I set up like only if they have a sales rank of less than whatever, and this, these other
yeah.
criteria. Is there a way? Yeah.
It should search the author field, but I'm certainly going to check to make sure it does this afternoon, because it searches all the other fields. It searches the description and the title, and it should search the author. And so, in theory, if you had an author who was called Joe Blogs, you could type Joe Blogs, and as you say, put in the criteria to so well these are criteria for good books, and then press the button. And now it depends on what genre, because what the main filter for Sleuthy is that it filters by genre. So you would need to know going in roughly what genre they write in, or just go down the list and just search for them in every genre, which would take you about 2 minutes. So because literally you would change the genre, drop down, just keep pressing the search until something showed up, if something showed up at all. Because if they've written a book and it does have low sales ranks, if its sales rank is 2 million or something, then Sleuthy's already thrown it in the discard pile, so to speak.
Cool. That sounds great.
I
Thanks.
must just fill in for the audience that Joe Blogs is the UK version of John Doe.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Joe Blog.
Thank you, Hannibal,
That's
and thank you very much, Rebecca, for coming up, because I didn't
Thank
understand
you.
enough to be able to translate that. So that's wonderful. This is the link. I'm getting a scary error. Dana says she's getting an error on your website. I haven't had any trouble with it, so I'm hoping that
Oh,
the link I put at the top of the page is working for everybody else. When I press go to the link, it takes me to the website, but the website is www.getsleuthy.com. We do have Taki Mackenzie coming up to join us on the sofa. Taki, welcome. Hi, hello. Ask away.
Hey, how's it going?
hey.
Hey, it's nice to finally be able to speak to you. I'm always seeing you around, but I don't really do much talking that much unless I see Anna on Clubhouse.
Oh,
um, so I just had a question about in regards to the publishing side. When I've heard you've mentioned you've started Royal Wave, and
yeah.
you've kind of approached it as a narrator slash publisher as well, right? Do you publish
Right.
through Royal Wave?
Yes, I publish mostly
Oh,
audiobooks, but moving gently into doing print and ebook too.
okay.
So yeah, so we publish, which means basically that what we're doing is going out and getting the licenses, so getting licenses for projects, and then producing the projects in house. So yeah.
Okay. So when you do that, what's the process through that? Because I know as a publisher, it's different than going through as a narrator. But once you produced a project, do you also like go through the process of like copywriting, getting ISBNs, and then putting it out there in distribution? Is that how that works?
Yes. Copyright's actually a lot easier than people think. Trademark is a headache, but copyright, honestly, providing that you produced an a sort of a creative work, so to speak, then copyright is in most cases relatively automatic. What you have to show when you're producing an audiobook is that you have the rights. Rights is the most important thing, not rather than copy. So when you license a book and you get a book licensed either through an agent or through a publisher or directly with an author, you have a contract like we have on ACX, and it shows that you have the exclusive worldwide English language, in my case, rights to produce that book, and you will get challenged on that. When I go to publish a book, I've had ACX. I've published some books directly through ACX, but as a publisher, because it's the most direct way to get on Audible in many cases, or find a way or whatever. But whoever you distribute with, they are very likely to come back and say, show us your contract, show us your proof of your chain of rights. And so you need your signed contract from the rights holder showing that you have the worldwide rights, because there's a lot of people out there who pretend they have the rights and they don't. So you need that signed contract, and you get that, and then you produce the book and put it out as a rights holder yourself. Effectively, you become at that. It becomes a sort of chain. The original rights holder has given you the rights. You then produce, and you become the rights holder yourself, and produce. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, it does. And I was also just wondering, I hear a lot of talk on matters of like sales and things like this, and every time I hear about low sales, I'm always like in the back of my mind thinking that it's a lot of the time it may just be a marketing issue. So on the publisher side, do you put like a good emphasis on marketing the projects that you do through your publishing company, and like do you
Yeah,
see
this is
anything
a great topic. It's a big topic. What makes a book sell and what doesn't? Marketing is part of it. I'm actually working on a project at the moment, which I call the Audiobook Success Matrix, and it looks like a grid. And what it is, it shows all the factors that actually make up the success of an audiobook. Everything from the marketplace all the way down to the narrator. And I say down, the narrator should be at the top. And so it's laid out in this particular grid. And so what I'm trying to do is pick away at the items in that grid to find out how much they matter. The first one that I looked at was, how much does the rank of an ebook actually correlate to the rank of an audiobook? Because we always assume that if an ebook is selling a lot, that the audiobook will be selling a lot. And what I actually found out when I actually did the analysis on that is that about a third of audiobook ranking can be attributed to the ebook ranking. So the question then becomes, what are those other 2/3? Now, this is actually what I teach when I coach prospecting, is how to spot this and what actually matters. Because I do have, although I haven't finished the data analysis on every other thing on the matrix, I'm pretty sure that I kind of know what most of them are. And the last thing I looked at, which you can find in the blog on Sleuthy, getsleuthy.com blog, and I will check it's working, so there's no errors, is that I just published a report of which genres sell, because genre is a factor. If you write within one genre that's high selling, you're going to sell, or publish in one genre that's high selling, for instance fantasy or romance or thrillers, you're going to sell a lot more units, if we call it that, than if you sell in something like, say, travel and tourism or photography, which are very low selling genres. So that's one of the parts of the puzzle. The other one, in terms of marketing, is honestly the author, or at least the way the author is represented online. It's a partnership in many ways, and honestly, the heavier hand of that partnership, the most important part of that partnership, is the book author, the rights holder for the ebook, the paperback, the hardback. There is an onus on them, and how they are marketing their book in itself is a huge part of well, I say huge part. It's a significant. It plays a significant role. I mean, there's a lot of factors. That's why it's a matrix in what goes into being selling. But I think the problem is when a lot of people, and I certainly did this right at the start and up until I figured I shouldn't be doing this. A lot of us kind of use the force when we're choosing books to go after. When we go on ACX, or when a project comes into our inbox, or we see something available, or somebody reaches out to us and says, "Hey, I've got this book. Would you like to do this?" Sometimes we just go, "Oh, it sounds fun. I'll do that," and we don't consider the actual, in any kind of scientific or methodological way, whether this is a viable project. And I mean, I know there's some people on this call I've had this conversation with, that there should be, like, and that's what the matrix I'm producing is, there should be a way of judging in an almost scientific way, is this project worth my time? And is it likely to be a seller? Now, any book, any publishing, or any creative art, like movies, music, books, anything at all, there's always a gamble. Anyone who's sort of produced anything commercially creative knows that you can work on a book, or you can work on an album, or you can work on a movie, and you think this is going to be the greatest hit in the world. It's going to make you a fortune. Everyone's going to love it. And then you put it out there and nobody cares. And then you can work on a project and just go, oh, this is a tiny little project. And, oh, I'm just doing this for fun. And you put it out there and it becomes the big hot ticket. The Blair Witch Project cost $50,000 to produce, made millions. And yet some of these Marvel movies that they put out, they cost 200 million and nobody cares. And there are other reasons for that than just luck. But there are ways. So every time you take on a project, particularly if you are doing it royalty share, you are taking a certain risk. Nothing is guaranteed. The only guaranteed thing is if you've got a contract, you produce the book, and they pay you per finished hour. And even that, as we know, can be troublesome sometimes. But so you're taking a risk. But the thing about doing this scientifically, actually looking at the numbers, picking a book based on certain factors to do with that book, the genre, the ranking, the reviews, the way the author is running the business of being an author. Looking at those things in a methodological, scientific way massively tilts the scales in your favor. It's not just hit and hope anymore. And a lot of the time on ACX, well, ACX, unfortunately, is I hate to say it, and anyone out that's got a book on ACX, I apologize, but most of the books on ACX have no business being audiobooks. I mean, they're just, unless AI wants to do them. I mean, they're just terrible books that and maybe they'll sell 2 copies in the course of their lifetime, and it's sad, but it doesn't make sense for us as audiobook producers or narrators to be investing 3 or 4 weeks of our life producing a book that's only going to sell 2 copies. And so we need, if you're prospecting or you're choosing a project for royalty share, you need to be tilting the scales in your favor. You need to be approaching it with a methodology that enables you to be reducing your risk and making it more likely that you'll pick a winner in terms of remuneration. If money is your measure of success, and one of the first things I ask when I start coaching people is, how do you measure success? Because there are a lot of people out there, they just want to be doing books that are fun. They've got great retirement money and they're okay, and they just want to, and so their measure of success is, I want to be doing books that light me up. And that's great, and you approach it differently than if you really need to put bread on the table with your books. So that's one of the things I'm working on, and so Sleuthy is part of that. It takes away the time of just finding books or finding potential leads, that you can sort through that, and then once you find that, you can look at the other factors, and then if all those factors add up to a successful, that it all looks good in terms of the indicators, then you reach out. And even then, you reach out and you might get an author that goes, I don't like audiobooks, or I'm going to narrate that myself next year when my kid goes off to college, or well, those things you can't anticipate, and those are stumbling blocks in the road. But at least if they do come back and they go, yeah, I'd love to work with you, because you've looked at the figures, you've looked at the metrics, that this book is a winner. And that, for instance, if they go, well, I don't really want to do it PFH, I want to do it royalty share. That if you do this royalty share, it's not just going to sit in the doldrums somewhere and never sell a copy. That it's very likely, if you've picked all the right indicators, that this is going to bring you in a nice monthly income. And so that's really what I coach most of the time when I'm coaching is how to do this, and how to do the reach out, and how to spot all these things, and how it all comes together. And Sleuthy is a tool in that process. It just enables you to find potential leads quickly, as opposed to spending, like I used to do, hours and hours trawling through Amazon, just trying to find books, trying to find needles in the haystack. This system goes into the haystack, finds all the things that look most like needles, and puts them in a pile so you can see them.
Can I ask, Hannibal, you've mentioned a couple of times that you do coaching. Where
Yeah.
can people get in touch with you to do that? Is that through the Sleuthy website or through
Oh
your own
yeah.
website?
You can on getsleuthy.com or hannibalhills.com, or just I'm pretty easy to find, I think, with a name like Hannibal Hills. You're going to be so just drop me an email, and I do, either formatted, I not quite like Sean does, where he's got like a whole like course, but so I do lessons that are tailored to particular things, or I'll just help you solve problems if I can. Most of the time, I mean, like I say, I treat the sort of audiobook process like a mountain. And a lot of people, when they're going up that mountain, they get to a particular stage of the mountain and they've done very well so far. Often they don't look back and see how far they've come enough. But they wonder which path to take going forward. That taking them to the next base camp is confusing. And so what I do a lot of the time is help people see that path, clear the mist in front of them, and say, well, this is what you need to be doing to take your narration career to that next level up, whatever level that is. Even if you're just sort of starting from scratch, or if you're 100 books in, there's always another level up the mountain. And so that's what I do. But yeah, you can find me at hannibalhills.com, or my email. I've got loads of email addresses, rollwave.com or getsleuthy.com. You just go there. And I offer everybody a free half an hour chat that you can book with me through getsleuthy.com, just to see if I'm compatible with you, see if you don't hate me, and maybe that I can help. And then if I can, then I'm hourly coaching like everybody else. But it's mostly about this process, finding work, and how to pick projects. Because I think a lot of us stumble by that. I see so many people online say, "Oh, I don't know how to pick, or I picked this terrible project," and there are flags. It's just knowing what flags to look for. And boy, did I miss these flags at the beginning. I spent a long time making these mistakes, and what I try to do through my coaching is help people avoid the mistakes I found on my process up the mountain.
Well, I think that's the perfect culmination of the hour. If anybody up here on the sofa still has something they'd like to say, please do say it now. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to come up and ask a last minute question, but you've actually run out of time. So
Oh,
thank you very much, Hannibal. It's
thank
been an
you.
absolute pleasure. Is there anything last minute that you'd like to say that I haven't let you say?
No, thank you for
Yeah.
having me. This has been a joy. It's fun. It's a subject obviously I like talking about. If anyone has any questions, I love people emailing me with questions, and I don't charge for replying to them. So please just reach out to me. I'm not terrible, I hope, and so I'd love to help any way I can. And I always say, as I always say, there's no such thing as a stupid question. The only stupid question is the question that goes unasked. My physics teacher used to have that on his wall. So please reach out to me if I can help in any way. I'd love to. We're all in this
I love
together.
that.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much indeed. Today we talked to Hannibal Hills. Thank you, Hannibal. My takeaways: go check out www.getsleuthy.com. I think it's brilliant. As you mentioned, there's a week's free check it out space, so you can check it out in your own time. And sounds like Hannibal is very friendly and welcoming. So there to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you very much to everybody who joined us today. It was a great conversation. Thank you very much, Hannibal. Do take care of yourselves, everybody, and let's go out and be our favorite selves. Bye bye.